up, Wildcats, and welcome to the second episode of the Signpost SportsCast. I'm your host, Brayson Brown. I'm co-hosted with,
Collyn Cowles.
and we are here today at the Wildcat soccer field, this beautiful pitch. And Collyn, let's get this started.
Yeah, so today we got 4 segments coming in. We got stories covered by the Signpost this last week. We have some upcoming events that are happening at campus. We're going to be talking about some other events that happened at campus that the Signpost didn't cover. And then we're going to top it off with some professional sports. We're going to talk about the NFL. We're going to talk about NBA season coming up, Real Salt Lake playoffs about to happen, and of course the Utah Hockey Club.
So heading into segment one, we have the story written by Gavin Nelson of Weber State going to Sacramento State. They lost 51-48, and it was their second straight loss after the win versus number 8 Montana in Missoula.
Yeah, so heading into Sac State, Weber traveled up there. They had a 51-48 loss in overtime. The game started off really fast, really high scoring pace. Both teams were going back and forth, and the Wildcats just weren't able to get the job done. And it seemed like since Montana, the team has been playing with how their opponent plays. With UNC, we played exactly how UNC played, and now traveling to Sacramento, we played exactly how Sacramento played. And they were both highly contested games with Weber falling short at the end.
Yeah, it's too bad. They've had a couple of games here where the victory was in their grasp, but yet they just couldn't, give that extra inch to finally get the W. And it's tough to see the team struggling right now, especially when I feel like they should win these games.
Yeah, so some highlighters of that game was Richie. He was 25 for 38 throwing the ball. He had one throwing touchdown and one interception. Um, his favorite target of the night was Jacob Sharp once again. Jacob Sharp has been um, a stud for our team with catching the ball. He's been Richie's #1 receiver. And Damon Bankston on the ground. He had 25 carries for 234 yards with that 70-yard touchdown that he had in the first half. Um, so even though our team's not getting the wins, our team is definitely performing, and the team the team's looking good. We're playing exactly how our team like how we're going up against. If they're a 3-3 team coming into this game, and now they're a 4-3 team, and it drops Weber's Big Sky record. We were doing really well in the Big Sky, and now it kind of demoted us to a mid-table team.
Yeah, it's kind of a bittersweet moment too, because I believe Kyle Thompson broke the scoring record this game, correct?
Yep.
And then sadly missed the game-tying field goal right at the end.
Yep.
So sorry about that, Kyle. It's all right. We'll get him next week.
Yeah, and then another story that was covered by the Signpost. We were able to go up to Logan and watch the men's basketball's first exhibition game against Utah State, and I was able to cover that story. Utah State has quite a packed little arena. Their fans show up for them, even for exhibition games, and that game was definitely something to look forward to. It was something that I looked forward to, prepping for what was after Dylan Jones, and now being able to see that first game at hand and what the team can be able to produce. Um, it was a good experience for us. It was fun.
Yeah, I'd definitely say it was a great experience. Even though Utah State lost their best player in Great Osibor and their head coach, this is still the Mountain West Conference champions, and they came and showed it. The defense was electric, and they were all over Weber State. Weber State was having multiple shot clock violations, and you know they let us know when we came to their house that this was their house, and they were gonna put their foot down. And they definitely showed that they're the champions right now of the Mountain West.
Yeah, and with Weber, we had a tough ending to the year last year. We lost Dylan Jones to the NBA, and ever since then, we kind of haven't found our stride back with men's basketball. We had a couple big transfers with Miguel Burris coming from Utah State and Miguel Tomley coming from Idaho State. So we were able to fill in the void of Dylan Jones, but we definitely need to see more. Viliami Varnanian finished the game with 16 points, and freshman Blaze 3 finished the game with 15. The Wildcats finished the game shooting 42% of the field, but Utah State finished 49 and were able to get the job done at 85-66. So it wasn't that close of a game, but there were some sparks for the Wildcats, for sure.
Yeah, something I would say is that the second unit came in and kind of rejuvenated the vibe, for the team. I think they played very hard, got the game a lot closer than it was at the time. And I think a huge issue for the team as well was missed free throws. I don't know how many times we missed free throws where it was either an and one play or just, a technical shot that these are points that should be easy and points that are given to you. And I think, we got to take advantage of that going forward.
Yeah, no, the free throw shooting was for sure, and Utah State's defense. They were shifting from a man to a zone, and Weber's offense couldn't tell if it was man or zone. And then once they figured out what they wanted to go for, it was the complete opposite. And Utah State definitely showed why they're the Mountain West champions in that game and why they have a decent team to compete for it again this year.
Yeah, definitely. And something I would say is that their student section was electric throughout the entire thing. This was a charity exhibition match, but yet they were acting like this was the NCAA Men's March Madness Championship game. They were all over Weber State, putting the pressure on us with free throws or, an air ball. They were constantly yelling that for what, 5 minutes straight during the timeout?
Hmm. Yeah.
That was crazy. So, I think Weber State needs to kind of get a student section like that, someone to back the team and help us out, when we're down or
For sure.
whatever.
Yeah, no, for sure. Utah State's student section definitely stepped up, and that was just a exhibition game. Doesn't even count towards their records, and they probably had 4,000 plus people in that arena. And like, yeah, we can get 4,000 students to our arena, but they have that true passion. They have that we're from here passion. This is our school passion, and we definitely need to start seeing that happen here at Weber State.
Yeah, I absolutely agree.
Now, heading into the second segment, we have some other sports that happened in the fall semester that weren't covered from the signpost, but are definitely worth noting. So to kind of start this off, we have women's volleyball. They played the University of Idaho on October 17th, and they were able to get the 3-0 dub. It was out of 5 sets, and the ladies got the job done.
Yeah, absolutely. They got the sweep. They've been struggling in last 3 games with 5 set matches and losing 2 out of the 3. So it was nice for them to finally get a sweep and give themselves a breather. Ashley Knighting led the way with 13 kills, and Kate Payne had 15 digs, with Leanna Woodley contributing 7 blocks. And they won each set by an average of 8 points.
And then heading into their second game of the week, they played against Eastern Washington. This was a traveling weekend for our ladies. They went to Eastern Washington, lost 1-3, and that was on October 19th. Another good game from Ashley Knighting. She led the game with 16 digs. Kate Payne led the team with a total. She led the team in blocks, and then she had 3 blocks and then 39 assists. And then Rose Moore led the way with 13 kills that game. So yeah, the second game was a loss, but the ladies were able to get those individual stats and still prove why our women's volleyball team is still really good.
Yeah, absolutely. And in that loss, they lost 2 of the 3 sets by only 3 points or less. They were in contention, and you know it was a game within their grasp.
Yeah, and then going on to women's soccer. Women's soccer had a hard loss to the University of Idaho. They lost 2-0 on October 18th. Um, after that win against Idaho State, they weren't able to fill the momentum, and they fell 2-0 to University of Idaho. Big Sky Conference game. It was a game we needed to win, but it was a game that fell short.
So after that win previously against Northern Colorado, we had a high expectation for the team. We thought they were in getting a groove. Starting to produce, starting to score goals. But going into this game, with a 0-2 loss, they say that a 2-0 deficit is one of the scariest things to have as a team because it's easy for the opposition to easily get one goal, take momentum and then tie it up and then even win. So it's kind of rough to see that they couldn't even get on the score sheet this week.
Yeah, University of Idaho outshot Weber 18-9, but only 6 of those shots were on target. So, I mean, out of the 18, 6 of them were pretty scary for our ladies. Those out, I mean, any shot can be conflicting towards the goalie, but for the most part, they they look on those shots that are on target. In the posts this year, I think the ladies have kept a good job on defense and keeping the targeted shots pretty low. But they traveled to Eastern Washington right after the University of Idaho and had a 1-2 loss to Eastern Washington. Back-to-back losses for our women's soccer program. Um, and from last year to this year, there were some promises and there were some things that they can have praise to, but as of right now, they only have 2 wins on the season, and there's only 2 games left on the year. So,
Yeah, going back to that game against Idaho, where they only had 6 shots on target, Idaho did. We had 5 on target ourselves, so literally they only had one more shot on target than us, but yet they capitalized twice on those opportunities. And I think, that kind of shows that we're getting the same opportunities that these other teams are getting, but we're just not putting it in the back of the net. And that's something that has to be done in sports. You have to score it. Everything is based on scoring.
yeah, Sammy Sofonia scored the goal for the Wildcats against Eastern Washington, and then about 9 minutes later, um, they lost that lead. They tied the game up, and then around in the 59th minute, that's when Eastern Washington took that go-ahead goal. And then for the rest of the 20 minutes of the game, they just kind of held the ball, kept possession, and got the win.
Do you think that in an instance like this, when we score first and then immediately get scored on within 10 minutes, do you think that's just a lack of focus, like getting too comfortable with a lead or surprised with a lead?
Well, I mean maybe so against Utah State, but not against the University of Idaho, nor against Eastern Washington. These are the games that you're going to see every year. These are the teams that you want to play every year, that you're going to play every year. So for Big Sky play, I don't think our ladies' mindset should be like that. I think it should be getting that goal, finding the ball again, controlling possession, maintaining possession, and then continuing to press that you're attacking third and keeping the ball in your attacking third. But I mean, against Utah State, that's what we saw. We saw the ladies go up early, kind of got a little bit discouraged, didn't know what to do, and then got scored on twice within 9 minutes. So with bigger games, yes, University of Utah, you don't really understand during the game of what your motive is against those teams. Yes, you want to win. Yes, that's the overall objective. But against those ranked schools, it's kind of hard to keep that mindset. So maybe yes against the big schools, but against Big Sky Conference teams, that's not how we should be playing. We should have our mindset of getting the win, controlling possession, having the same motive in the game as we're leaving the game as well. And that might not be what's going through our process. I know Craig Sanders is an amazing coach here at Weber State, and he's been coaching the ladies for quite some time. Um, and that's definitely not his philosophy, is to change mindsets. The philosophy is to keep the mindset and to keep the same pressure going forward. So to answer your question, it shouldn't be like that towards Big Sky schools.
I completely agree with you. It seems as if we get the lead and then we start to take our foot off the gas and allow the other team to get comfortable, get possession, and take opportunities against us. And they're seeming to capitalize within a short amount of time. And that just should not be happening, especially in conference play, like you're saying. It's understandable against Utah State when this is a team that is ranked top 25, high powered offense, ready to score always. But against these teams that are in our conference, and I wouldn't say that they're largely greater than our team.
Mhm.
Like we stand a good chance in every game. And so things like this should not be happening.
Yeah, no, for sure. And kind of going off of that, we have club sports. Hockey's just traveled to the St. Charles, Missouri. They just got home this last Monday. They had a 3-game weekend. After a 3-game weekend that they did at the Ogden Ice Sheet, they had one game last week against um, Lake Region College. That was a 12-1 victory for our Wildcat hockey program, and they traveled all the way to St. Charles, Missouri to compete in the Linwood Fall Showcase. The Wildcats were able to go 1-2 in those 3 games. They fell 6-2 to Trinh University. They fell 4-1 to the University of Linwood, and then they beat the University of Iowa 5-4 in an overtime thriller. So that was cool to see the Wildcats be able to bounce back from those first 2 losses. The last time they played at the Linwood Fall Showcase was when they were competing in nationals last year. So, like we said in the last episode, the boys kind of knew what they were getting themselves into. They knew the rink, they knew the size, they knew the type of ice. They knew exactly what they were getting their hands into, and they were able to walk away with that weekend with 1 win. So that's good.
That's a positive to get one win. But I feel like it seems as if the team is on a teeter-totter effect. One week they can have a 12-1 victory, and then the next week, they're losing 2 out of 3 games. The team does a really good job, I felt as if they were starting to mesh, and work as a team.
Mhm.
But, props to them for getting the team against Iowa. That's a big school, and that's a big win for them. So
Yeah.
hopefully they can just build on that win and, come into next week and, lay down the boom.
Yeah, and, after that, I mean, after University of Idaho, we have Utah State for men's hockey. We've seen Utah State this year already. They traveled to the Ogden Ice Sheet for the first game of the season. We lost that game. Um, it wasn't what we wanted to start the season as, but we do have that redemption match this upcoming weekend.
Yeah, and I think going off of that, Lake Region State College, they gave Utah State a run for their money. So, and we laid out a spanking for Lake Region College.
Yeah.
So, I think if we can play the same way that we did against Lake Region, we can definitely make it a closer game than it was the first game of the season against Utah State. Okay, so now moving into segment three, we're going to go over pro sports that are going on at the moment. So currently, the World Series matchup is going to be between the Los Angeles Dodgers and the New York Yankees. Both teams have met 11 times previously in the World Series. The Yankees have won 8 of the 11 times they have faced. The Dodgers won the last one, so we're hoping the Dodgers can get the win. I'm a Dodgers fan personally, but during the championship series, the Dodgers defeated the New York Mets in 6 games to advance. Each game was won by an average of 6, almost 7 runs. So if you're a fan of offense, this was the series for you, definitely. The Dodgers tied the postseason record of consecutive scoreless innings with 33, which led up until game 2, where the Mets then scored and ended the streak before they could break the record right there.
Yeah. And switching over onto the other side of the bracket, I'm a Guardians fan, born and raised in Cleveland. But the hardship of our fans has been it's oh dude, it's all we can live for is we almost made it. The Cleveland Browns almost won. The Cleveland Indians almost won. So and that's kind of how it was in the ALCS. So the New York Yankees faced off against the Cleveland Guardians, and the Guardians had a 5-game series with the Tigers right before. The Tigers almost beat us. They almost beat us. They took us all the way to game 5, and then they put in Scooble, and Scooble was that decider in game 2. And then the Guardians just kind of hit the ball left and right over on Scooble, kind of made their way um, to the Yankees. The Yankees had an easy series against the Kansas City Royals. Royals did take 1 game on the Yankees, but the Yankees had at least 3 days. They were sitting at home until they had that first game against Cleveland in New York. But it was all Yankees. First 2 games in New York, the Yankees won. But then that game 3 in Cleveland was that decider. John Kenzie Noel hit a 2-run home run in the bottom of the ninth to tie the game. It was a 5-3 ball game. And John Kenzie Noel hit that game tying home run, sent it to extra innings. Then going into extra innings, Yankees didn't do anything at the top of the 10th. Going into the bottom of the 10th, David Fry was the man of the hour, the man of Cleveland, hit that game-winning home run, kind of put this to the team, the city back into the series. The Yankees had that 2-1 lead over the Guardians, but can't do much when your payroll's $240 something million. So Guardians couldn't get the job done. Giancarlo Stanton finished as ALCS MVP. He finished the series with 5 home runs and 11 RBIs. He did pass Babe Ruth as the most home runs in postseason history as a New York Yankee. So it's pretty cool seeing these old stats get beat by some modern guys. Shohei Ohtani has the same thing with the Dodgers. He's beaten Babe Ruth records left and right. So yes, it was disappointing as a Guardians fan, but as a baseball fan, it is cool to see records be broken and guys making names for themselves.
I agree. Do you think that that 5-game series against Detroit is kind of what contributed to such a short series against the Yankees? Do you feel that as if, the team maybe got worn down that when they shouldn't have against Detroit and when they should have just swept them and just moved on to the Yankees?
Well, I think it was a bit of that, and I think it was also our closer in Emmanuel Clase. Emmanuel Clase all season long, he was the reason why Cleveland was in the playoffs to begin with. He led the MLB in saves, he led the MLB in strikeouts as a closer. The guy is an absolute stud. But then in the postseason against the Yankees, he led up 4 home runs. He let up 2 home runs in the game 3 that put Cleveland down, which eventually made them come back to get the win. Game 4, same thing, put him in. He let up 2 runs. That was the end of the game. Game 5 was the only game where he actually did something. He came in at the bottom of the ninth. Or no, he came in at the bottom of the top of the eighth. He had 2 strikes. Third batter was a pop fly. So I think it was the reason why we got to the playoffs. It was the reason why we got out of the playoffs. We have the best closer in baseball, and he didn't produce. He wasn't the best closer in the postseason.
It's tough when things happen like that. Something crazy that I thought during the Dodgers series was that Tommy Edman was the NLCS MVP. When you got a lineup with Shohei Ohtani, you have Freddie Freeman, Mookie Betts, and you have somebody who's in a bottom part of the batting order taking the MVP. He led the way for the Dodgers with a 341 batting average, and he was getting on base. He was hitting big home runs, especially in that closeout game. But Mookie Betts led the team also during the postseason with 4 home runs and 12 RBI. So Mookie was still getting that production, but the deciding factor was Tommy Edman in this series.
Yeah. And you mentioned in your first bit talking about the Yankees that the Dodgers had an average of 6 of almost 7 runs scored against the Mets, and in the Cleveland Yankees series, we saw that it was an average of 2 to 3 runs. So going into the postseason, we have the Dodgers as favorites to win it all this year. I think they have a line of like what minus 120 something. It's not a huge favorite, but they are favorited. They do have to pick an underdog going into the World Series, but it's not much. This should be a World Series that we want to see. Again, this is the 12th time that they will be meeting. The Yankees have won 8 of the last 11 times. So let's hope the Dodgers can kind of break that streak and make sure the Yankees don't get their 28th pennant, the 28th World Series pennant.
Definitely. We are hoping that the Dodgers win so we do not have to hear Gavin Nelson talk about the Yankees. Uh, But along with that, like you were saying, the average of victory between the Dodgers and the Mets was 6 or 7 runs. But in the series between the Yankees and the Guardians, it was 3 runs. So it was a lot closer games between New York and Cleveland. But so you can see that the Dodgers have, that firepower and they have that scoring ability, but they also have the defensive ability to limit the other team from scoring, as you could see with the 33 consecutive innings of without even allowing 1 run, which is absolutely insane.
Yeah, this is going to be a series of who paid the most money and whose most valuable assets can get the job done. It's going to be a battle between Shohei Ohtani, Aaron Judge. It's going to be a battle between Freddie Freeman and Giancarlo Stanton. I mean, there's so many guys. Both teams' payrolls are insane. So it's glad that they paid for what we're getting. At least it's not like the last 2 years where they paid to get knocked out of the first round by the Rangers or to get knocked out of the first round by the Mariners. It's good that they actually paid all this money to see it paid off.
Yeah, Colin, Cleveland should maybe take note and figure out that that is how you get to World Series.
Pay one player $500 million and you'll get to the World Series. Keep that in mind, Cleveland. Keep that in mind. All right, and then going into another professional sport, we're going to be talking about some Utah sports. So we got Real Salt Lake. Real Salt Lake has had a really good season so far since their last 3 years. This has been one of their better years. They're on track to leading the West Coast in points projected for playoffs. They are currently in 3rd place, sitting behind LAFC and LA Galaxy. So Real Salt Lake just had a 2-1 win over the Vancouver Whitecaps that claimed their number 3 seed. They were sitting on that 4th, 5th mark. So it was good to see that Real Salt Lake got that dub. We both follow Real Salt Lake really well. They had their last off season or their last transfer window. They let go of one of their better players to the French league in Andres Gomez. But ever since Andres Gomez, we signed a few players. We saw Chicho Arango score a little bit more, getting more into the box. But for the most part, it's planning for these playoffs. It's the first time RSL's going to be possibly making a deep run in the playoffs in quite some time.
It's super exciting to see how the team has changed. Chicho Arango, he has become one of the MVP possible candidates for the year. I believe he scored 17 goals on the year. He has been in a little bit of a drought over the last 17 games. He's only scored once, but um, that first game of the season when we played Inter Miami, things were not looking very pretty. Obviously, Inter Miami has the firepower of Lionel Messi, Luis Suarez, and Sergio Busquets and Jordi Alba, but we lost that game 3-0, and things were not looking swell. But after that, it seemed as if the team kicked it into another gear and led us all the way to the top seed in the West Conference, and we held that for about 3 weeks. But sometimes when you get too comfortable up at the top, you're gonna fall down. See, after that 3-0 loss to Miami, things were not looking very well for the team. But after that, they then went on to take the top seed in the Western Conference and hold on to it for about 3 weeks. We were on an insane, unbeatable run. I think we tied the record for the club with, I believe it was 14 or 15 games of unbeaten streak. And, you know, we got a little comfortable up at the top, and that's something you can't do when you're in first place. You got to keep that momentum and keep building onto it. And so we lost that first place spot to the LA teams, which these teams have a lot of firepower as well. These players that come over from Europe and, they want to live on the beach and play soccer for these LA teams. And it's kind of unfair when we don't really have any beaches for these players to go to. But we're super excited for RSL and to see how far they can go in this postseason. We're hoping they make a long run and bring MLS Cup back to Utah again for the second time.
Yeah. So Real Salt Lake is facing Minnesota in the first round of the playoffs. So it's going to be a best of 3 series. Um, let's hope it doesn't go 3 games like it did last year to Houston Dynamo. Um, Last year we lost. We won the first game in Houston, lost the second game in Houston, and then lost that third game in Houston. So both of these, all of these games are going to be playing here in Real at America First.
I believe they.
It's switching it back and forth. Okay, so it's gonna be switching them back and forth. Real Salt Lake has um, that first game on October 29th, which is at 7 p.m. So it's the start of the MLS playoffs. It's the start of a new journey for Real Salt Lake. This year, Real Salt Lake has spent the most money on any team than we've ever had in the past. So it's definitely going to be something that Utah fans, Real Salt Lake fans, fans down south are going to be able to go to. I'm going to try and go to it, but these games are definitely something that don't happen that often.
Okay, so moving on to the next Utah sport, we have the Utah Hockey Club, and their record on the year is 4-1-1, placing them in third place in the Western Conference Central Division with 9 points. And so the point system in hockey is a little different. So you get 2 points for a win, 1 point for a tie, and then also 1 point for an overtime loss, which I think is a little interesting.
Yeah, that is a little interesting. I mean, soccer, it's 3 for a win and 1 for a tie and nothing for a loss. I think getting a point for losing. I mean, yes, you're going into overtime. Yes, that's the end of the game. But overall, I don't think you should get a point for losing.
I agree. It's kind of a little silly to see a point for a loss. It's like a participation trophy for him for you almost won.
Yeah, you almost won. But the last home game for the hockey club was against the Bruins. They had a 2-1 win over the Bruins in overtime. I mean, the Bruins got a point for that game. But the next game coming up is against the or no, it was yeah. So this year the team has 4 games in overtime, with 3 times with their only loss coming to the hands of the Anaheim Ducks, which was in overtime. So they still got a point for that. But our team has sent 4 games into overtime this year out of the 6. We have a game coming up against Ottawa this week. So the Utah Hockey Club is something new for Utah fans, something new for the state of Utah. We've definitely had the experience of Weber State hockey these last years, but nothing like the Utah Hockey Club. And for fans who don't know, the Utah Hockey Club used to be used to be the Arizona Coyotes, and the Arizona Coyotes got new ownership. They couldn't find a place to play their team. They were playing at a high school college arena every other weekend, staying in cheap hotels, and eventually the team kind of got fed up with it. Ryan Smith came in, bought the team, and the rest is kind of history. As Utah hockey is now Utah hockey.
It's definitely the show in town right now. A lot of these players playing in Arizona, they were not getting very much attendance at these games. It was very minimal. And so for them to arrive in Utah and see loads of people welcoming them right off of the plane, I think that changed their perspective, because they were a bottom team. They weren't very good last year, but I think with how they've been received by the Utah community and everything that we offer, all the fandom, I think that they're kind of starting to perform now. They see that we're passionate about this sport and that we want to see them succeed. And it's been amazing to see. I mean, having 4 wins on the season already and only 1 loss, that's very impressive, especially when we were playing the New York Rangers in one of those games and won that game in overtime.
Hmm.
The New York Rangers have been, laying down the boom on a lot of teams this season, high scoring team, but it's been awesome.
Yeah, no, and some cool stats on the team this year. Clayton Keller, the captain of the team, leads the team with 4 goals, and he has a total of 4 assists on the year. He's leading the team in points. Dylan Gunter last year was kind of a stud. He signed a huge contract with the hockey club. I think it's an 8-year deal, so he will be at the hockey club for 8 more years if we don't trade him. But he's leading the NHL with 5 goals, leading our team with 5 goals. Um, Nick Schmaltz leads the team with a total of 7 assists. Team's playing good. Team's looking good. Team's playing good. They're playing aggressive. We have a really good captain in Clayton Keller. He's holding the guys accountable. And what's really good about a captain is when your captain can lead in both goals and assists. He just knows how to get the puck around the ice.
For sure, the players are really contributing, as a group. Like you said, Nick Schmaltz leading the team with 7 assists. Hasn't scored on the year, but yet he has 7 assists. And usually he's a center, so usually they're the ones that put the puck in the back of the net. But
Mhm.
they're playing as a team. The puck movement is so fluid and just it's beautiful to watch. And when you see your captain performing like that, it motivates you as a group to see your leader going out there giving his all and performing. And that's what this team is doing. They're performing every night, no matter who they're playing. They do not care about the name on the front or the name on the back, and they're just ready to perform.
Yeah. And again, next game is on the 22nd, and that's against the Ottawa Senators. Plenty of home games for Utah hockey fans to go to this year. They're definitely going to do some events. They're definitely going to have some 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 events that they do at RSL with fans and kids and families outside of the event. Their first home game, they had a watch party outside. That second game against the Bruins, they had a watch party outside. And I can kind of contest for the Ottawa game that they're going to have another watch party outside. So even though you can't get into the game, you can still take the train down, go down with your family, watch the game with some local fans, kind of get familiar with the game if you don't know much about it. If you don't want to spend any money, just hang outside the stadium and watch the game.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so moving on to the next professional sport here in Utah, we have the Utah Jazz. We're going to be having their first game of the NBA season taking place on Wednesday, October 23rd at 7 p.m. against the Memphis Grizzlies. What are your thoughts going into this game?
Yeah, no, the Jazz got a. They haven't changed much from last year, other than draft picks. Collier and the kid from Duke.
Filipowski.
Yep, Filipowski. But other than that, you haven't seen much with the Jazz offense. You're gonna have some familiar faces: Keontae George, Laurie Markkinen, Colin Sexton, um, Walker Kessler. But for the most part, it's the same guys. Jordan Clarkson's going to be coming off that bench as well. So um, the front office hasn't done much with the team, but they are bringing in some young kids. Collier's coming from USC. He was their leading scorer behind with Bronny James on that team. Bronny James didn't do much for USC, but Collier was the star of USC last year, and same with Filipowski. Filipowski was not the star of Duke, but he was a really good role player, and that's kind of what the Jazz need in that backup center position. And power forward position is a good role player to come in after Laurie, after Walker, and can still get those box plus or those box plus minus points at a fair rate because last year the team struggled in those bigger positions, and the guards can't do them all by themselves.
Exactly. And the front office didn't make any big splashes. They've been promising for years. They did get the extension of Laurie Markkinen, which is huge for the team. He is the face of the franchise at the moment. But they did make players. They got Patty Mills,
Hmm.
you know, he can light up the 3-point line any night of the week. They also got Drew Eubanks, who was a backup center for the Phoenix Suns. So they're trying to build up that center position, kind of get some big bodies back there to defend the rim. And then also just another player they picked up was Svi Mikhailiuk from the Boston Celtics.
Yeah, yeah. Something interesting for the Jazz this year. It's going to be cool to see if we can make a push for that in-season tournament and also get the wins to make the postseason. The Western Conference is the hardest conference in basketball. It's known to have at least 10 teams pushing for the playoffs when it's a best of 8, and then now we have the play-in tournament. So the key motives for the Jazz this year is just treat it like Moneyball. Get points, get buckets, and just play every possession that you can because every team's going to be doing the same motive. They want those wins. The Western Conference is the most competitive conference in NBA basketball. So just staying consistent is what the Jazz have to look for this year. Staying consistent.
I think a lot of fans have kind of become impatient, with how the team's been doing. 2 years ago, when kind of things shifted for the Jazz, they got rid of Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert in that free agency. During that time, the team had, fans had no expectations really for the team. But with those trades, they then got great role players who contributed to the team, and the Jazz were actually the top seed in the Western Conference during that time. And it seems like they were not expecting to be that good as a team, and so they kind of traded those players, those amazing role players that we had, and kind of just pumped the brakes on the team to kind of get a higher draft pick, is what it kind of seemed like back then. And over the past 2 years as well, it's just been the same thing of kind of settling for the draft. It kind of seems like.
Yeah. And then kind of finishing off in some professional sports, we're going to just briefly talk about the NFL, just who's leading, what to kind of expect. Um, NFL, we haven't really seen much with the AFC in change wise, other than their quarterback not playing as well as he used to. But the Kansas City Chiefs are still 6-0. They're leading the NFL. They're leading the AFC. And then, kind of interesting, the Detroit Lions are leading the NFC. They're a 5-1 team. They just came off a win against an undefeated Minnesota Vikings to take their division. Both Minnesota and Detroit are 5-1, but as you can tell, Detroit were favorited. They won that game. The AFC or the NFC North is definitely the division to watch this year, but um, two leading powerhouses, Chiefs, Lions. Hopefully, that's a maybe not on the Chiefs side, but for the Lions, it'd be cool for them to keep doing what they're doing. It's like the same thing as Cleveland. You want to root for those smaller cities. You want to root for those smaller market teams, and the Lions have definitely had enough time off from winning that they can finally start winning.
Definitely. The team has been building something special over the past couple of years, and it's finally coming to fruition. And 5-1, leading the NFC, taking down very good teams, including the Minnesota Vikings, Seattle Seahawks, and it's just been a surprise when coming into the season, the 49ers were the favorites to be the top team in the NFC.
Mm-hmm. And the Chiefs just had a pretty easy win over the 49ers. 49ers dropped to 3-4 on the year. Not something they were looking to. Brandon Ayuk hasn't been playing the way they wanted to after they paid him. Christian McCaffrey's still injured for the 49ers. So it's just young Brock Purdy and trying to see if they can find their motive again. But, I mean, it's still the Chiefs. It is still the Chiefs.
Yeah, sadly, the Chiefs are at the top of the AFC.
All right, now wrapping up the Signpost Sportscast, we have the last segment of the day. We're going to be talking about some upcoming events for Wildcat students to attend. So to start this off, uh, football is coming off that loss to Sacramento State. They also have the week off this week. They're not playing any football, home nor away, but they are traveling to Flagstaff, Arizona, to face off against Northern Arizona on November 2nd. Yeah, hopefully the boys can get that win. We can't go 0-3. Their current record is 3-5 overall, and they're sitting fourth in the Big Sky. We can still have a chance to making that Big Sky tournament for football, but we need to get this win in Flagstaff.
I completely agree with you there. They have the week off. It's time to find out the chinks in the armor and get it fixed and get back on the right track. Moving on, we have hockey that will be traveling up to Logan, Utah to face in-state rivals Utah State at the Eccles Ice Center on October 25th at 7 p.m. And our record is 4-6 overall in the year.
Yeah, so coming up after Missouri, the team lost 2 games out of the 3 games. We look to get a bounce back against Utah State. That's a game that every Wildcat hockey member has that's circled on their calendar. Utah State is that game you cannot lose to. So we already lost that first game of the season to Utah State. Let's hope we can bounce back, go up to the Eccles Ice Center, and upset them at their rink the same way they did to us.
For sure. And then moving on, women's soccer will play Northern Arizona on October 25th at 7 p.m. as well. And then also, we'll play at the University of Montana on October 27th, and that will be senior night for our ladies. Let's come out and support them. They've worked hard this season. And maybe the results have not gone their way, but they've still been putting in the hours in the classroom and also on the field. And the record is 2-11 and 5 on the season.
Yeah, women's basketball starts off their season this year. We have an exhibition game against Western Wyoming Community College on this Saturday at 11 a.m. at the D Event Center. So October 26th, Saturday, come support the ladies. They're starting their first year, the second year under Gentile Jackson, first year without De'Aaron Hickok in at least 4 years. We have the departure of De'Aaron Hickok for women's basketball and the departure of Dylan Jones for men's basketball. So 2 big departures, but they definitely need the support of the fans to get them going. Women's basketball is definitely one of those events where we need to get more students to go to. Um, let's just go and support the ladies. Let's get this first exhibition win and let's get the season started right.
For sure. And then moving on, we have women's volleyball versus Sacramento State Thursday, October 24th at 6 p.m. And then also versus Portland State on Saturday, October 26th. And both of these games are going to be taking place at home. So let's go support the ladies. They're trying their hardest and working hard on the season.
Yeah, and then to kind of finish off some events for this week for Wildcats to come check out, we have men's basketball. Yeah, we have women's basketball on Saturday. We'll turn around. We have a men's basketball game on Monday against Adams State. This is the second exhibition game of the season. This is the last exhibition game before the season starts on November 4th, which is against Northwestern Indian College. Um, so let's hope we can get that bounce back win after Idaho State. Adams State, this should be a pretty easy win for our men's basketball program. We hope to get the likes of Miguel Burris to start not just dominating the glass, but dominating the points section of the game as well. He needs to get on the boards. Miguel Tomley needs to continue to shoot the 3 ball. We just hope that that ball can get into the back of the net.
Yeah, definitely. We are hoping that basketball can start the season off right, get in the right direction, and just build on that momentum. We need to be a team and succeed without Dylan Jones. I think that's the big challenge this year.
If there are events for Wildcat fans to come to, if there was only 1 or 2 you should make, definitely on Monday, check out men's basketball. And if you have the time, go check out women's basketball Saturday morning. It's 11 in the morning. Yeah, it's a little early, but if you got nothing going on, go check out our ladies.
And we want to thank all the listeners for tuning in and see you next week.
Thank you.